Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Let's learn computer science. Welcome to day 10 video of 21 days Python masterclass. Today's topic is Python lists. In today's session, you'll understand what lists are, how we can access elements of lists, indexing and slicing in lists, along with various operations that we can perform on lists, including concatenation, repetition, membership. Also, we'll understand how to traverse a list using loops, both for and while. We'll also explore various built-in functions which we can use along with lists. And also, we'll understand this concept using various examples in Python shell. So let's start. First of all, let's understand what lists are. Now, when we talk about list, this is a very, very important topic in Python. As you can see, this is ordered collection of items. It's a sequence data type, which basically collects items of different data type, and they are ordered. List is mutable. Now, what is mutable? We have understood about various data types in my day 2 video of 21 days Python masterclass. You can go and check day 2 video where you can understand and revisit concepts of mutable and immutable data types. So data that you enter, data that you store inside a list, you can change it. So it's changeable, right? List, they can hold elements of different data types. So in one place, you can save integers, strings, even other lists, float, different data types. You can make a collection and store at one place, and they all are ordered and mutable, means you can change that also. Now, these are basic data structures used for storing and manipulating data in Python programs. Now, we also use lists to implement arrays and various other data structures. Talk about stacks, queues, right? Here is one example. So if you look here, name of the list is my list. Now, very important thing about list is they are denoted using square brackets, and data inside them are separated by comma. Now, this is a list of numbers, numeric data type. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are elements of list, and this list is having name as my underscore list, right? So this line, this statement in Python code, this means my list is a list and it has 5 elements and they all are of numeric data type. We can also have list with mix of different data types. So there is another list, mixed underscore list equals 1, apple, true, 3.14. So here 1 is numeric, apple is string, true is boolean, and 3.14 is a float data type. So as you can see, we can have list of one data type, we can have of multiple data types as well. Remember, lists are denoted by square brackets. Now, how can we access list elements? And as part of that, we'll understand what indexing is and how we can slice. If you remember, we learned about indexing and slicing in day 8 video, where we learned about strings. So this concept is similar to that. So if you want to revisit, you can go and watch day 8 video about strings. Now, As you know, lists are like containers with compartments, and each list item has a position called index, right? So first list item, it starts with indexing value 0, and last list item has indexing value, whatever length of the list is, -1, right? So in Python, indexing starts at 0. So the first item in the list has an index of 0, second item has an index of 1, and so on. So we can access individual items in the list by specifying their index. How? We'll see with some examples. Before that, let's understand what is slicing. So slicing is basically you take out some portion of a list by specifying range. Maybe you have 10 list items, but you only want to extract second and third. So that is slicing, taking one portion of the list, displaying just one portion of the list, right? So here is one example. Let's say list name is my list. Elements are 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50, all numeric. Now, how can I access first element? To access first element, which is 10, I can write, this is a variable where I'm storing first element. So first item is equals to my list, which is name of this list, square bracket and 0. Now, because first element has index value 0, so 0 will give me 10. If I want to access 20, which is second element, so my index value is 1. So my list, square brackets, inside it, index value, which is 1. So similarly for 50, it is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 is the index value for 50. So if you want to access 50, you'll write my underscore list, square bracket, 4. Right? So now let's see how do we slice a list to get a range of items. So slice of list, that's a variable name, equals my list, which is list name. I want to access only items from 20 up to 40. So 20, its index value is 1, and for 40, index value is 3. But as you know, last item is not inclusive, it's exclusive. So we take till 4. So 1 to 4 will give us 1, 2, and 3. Right? So this is how we slice a list. This is how we take one portion of list, right? So that's how we access individual elements of a list, right? Now let's understand about list operations. We can perform concatenation on lists, repetition, and membership. All these operations we also covered in our day 8 video where we learned about strings. So you can revisit over there. Let's understand how concatenation can be performed in lists. Now, concatenation is basically process of combining two or more lists to create a new list. Simple. Combining two lists, getting a new list. Now, here to do so, we use plus operator. So, if you want to concatenate two lists, so you'll write list 1 plus list 2, which will give you a new list. Now, very important to understand that this operation does not modify the original lists. Instead, it creates a new list that contains the elements of both the lists, right? So if you're writing list 1 plus list 2, it will create a new list where elements of both the lists are present. But in case you want to merge two lists, then you can use an assignment statement to assign the merged list to another list. So for example, if you want that items of list 1 and list 2 are stored in list 1 only, then you will write list 1 is equals to list 1 plus list 2. So whatever elements are there in list 1, whatever elements are present in list 2, they both will be merged and stored in list 1 only. So you are changing it using assignment statement, right? Here is one example. So list 1 is having elements 1, 2, and 3. List 2 is having elements 4, 5, and 6. So if you want to concatenate both the lists, so you'll write a new list name is equals to list 1 plus list 2. So if I print new list name, which is concatenated list, it will give me a combined list having elements of both the list 1 as well as list 2. So that is how concatenation happens. Next is repetition. How do we perform this operation? So basically, repetition is creating a new list by repeating the elements of an existing list multiple times. So here we use multiplication operator, asterisk sign. How do we do it? Basically, this operation duplicates the elements of original list as many times as specified. So let's see how do we do it. So let's say list 1 is having elements 1, 2, and 3. So if I write list 1 multiplied by 3, which is a numeric value, so what it will do? It will create a new list, and in that new list, elements of original list will be repeated those many times as the number specified up there. So in this case, we multiplied it with 3. So 1, 2, 3 now is repeated 3 times. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that is how repetition is performed in lists of Python, right? Next is membership. Now, you know, membership operators are in, not in. So we can use these to check whether a specific element exists within a list or not, right? So we can use in operator to determine if the item is present in the list, and it will return true if the item is found and false if it's not found in the list. So this operator, this membership operator, is very, very helpful when you perform search, when you create longer programs using loops. So this operator helps you a lot. Let's see one example. So here my list is equals to 1, 2, 3. So we are checking whether the one element is present in the list or not. So a variable is taken is present equals to 2 in my list. So 2, we are checking whether it's present in my list. So in is membership operator. So 2 in my list will return true if 2 is present and false if it is not. So 2 in my list, yes, it is present. So it will give you true. So is present will store true in it, right? And we are taking one more variable, is not present. I have taken this is present and is not present. However, you can take any variable name as you please, right? You can take XYZ, you can take ABC, you can take whatever you like, right? So is not present is equals to 4 in my list. Now I'm checking whether 4 is present in my list or not. So if you see 1, 2, 3, 4 is not present. So this will return false, and false is going to be stored in the variable name is not present. So that is how membership operators are used in lists. Next, let's see how we can traverse a list using loop. So traversing a list means moving through the elements of a list one at a time to perform operations on each element, right? So visiting each and every element. Now, Python provides two commonly used loops, as you all know. We have learned about loops already. So if you want to revisit your concepts about loops, so you can see my day 7 video where I have explained iterative flow control or looping statements. So in Python, we have for and while, and we can traverse lists using both these loops, right? So you need to ensure that loop stops when you have traversed all the elements in the list to avoid infinite loops, right? So you have to have some condition, you have to have a stopping point so that your loop does not convert into a infinite loop, right? Let's see one example using for loop. So let's say we have a list where we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as elements. So if I want to traverse it, I can simply write for num. Num is a variable. You can take any variable name. So for num in numbers. So here in operator is used, right? So it helps in traversing in using loops. So for num in numbers, numbers is my list name. So for num in numbers, print num. Simple. So whatever number is here, whatever variable name I'm using here, so it will iterate through the list and will print that number here. So we'll see all these examples on Python shell in some time. Before that, let's see what are various built-in functions which can be used in lists. Here I have listed so many functions that you can use along with lists in Python. So we'll cover these one by one in Python shell, right? So if you see here, first one is length, then append, then extend, insert, remove, pop, index, count, sort, reverse, min, max, sum, any, all, sorted, list, slice, enumerate, zip. So we will understand these one by one in Python shell. However, before that, let's see what are nested lists in Python. So nested means when we contain a list within some other list, right? So nested. A list can contain other lists, creating a nested or multi-dimensional structure. Now, this is very important to understand because we also use lists to implement arrays in Python. So 2D arrays are nothing but nested lists. So please understand how do we implement nested lists in Python. So to understand nested lists, think of it as boxes within boxes, where each box can hold more items, including other boxes, right? So a list can have some other items as well as it can have some other lists in it. So that is how you can relate with it. To access items in nested lists, you must use multiple indices like opening multiple layers of boxes. So if you look at this example, I have given it a name as matrix. So here I have a list having 3 other lists in it as list items. So first one is 1, 2, 3. This is also a list. This is having 4, 5, 6. This is also an individual list. This is having 7, 8, 9. This is also an individual list. So one list is having 3 other lists in it, right? And in order to access this, I have to have multiple indices, right? So right now, if you see, I have 3 rows and 3 columns here, right? So first row, second row, third row, and each row is having 3 columns in it. To access this, I have to have one index for row and second index for column. So if I write matrix, which is element, which is list name. So if I want to access matrix 1, 2, so row index is 1 and column index is 2. So it will give me 6. So row index 1 means this is my row 1 index. This is 0 row, this is 1 row, this is second row. So 0, 1, 2, 3 rows, but indexing starts from 0. So 0th row, 1th row, and second row, right? So here index is 1. That means I need to access this list, this row of this list, right? Plus index 2 for column. So that means I have to 0, 1, 2. This is my column that I'm going to access. So individual element is 6. Clear? So that is how we access individual elements of a nested list. Now, how do we create 1D array using list? So 1D array is nothing but a list in Python, right? So 1D array means one-dimensional array is a linear collection of elements, right? And in Python, we can create 1D array using a list, simple list, right? So list is a flexible data structure that can hold elements of various data types. However, if you know the definition of arrays, arrays are basically, they can hold data items of only one data type, right? So that is how you need to make your list. So if you are implementing arrays using list, you need to ensure you are only putting one type of data in it. Okay, but if somebody asks you what's the difference between arrays and lists, you can always mention that lists can store data type of multiple types. However, arrays, they only store one type of data in them. Also, lists are dynamic in nature and arrays, they are static in nature, right? So that is also the difference between the two. Now, you can simply create 1D array by enclosing elements inside the square brackets, right? So my array is equals to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can access them using for loop the way it is written. Okay. Now let's understand how do we create a 2D array in Python using lists. Now 2D array, basically it's a two-dimensional array, and it is where data elements are arranged in the form of a table or a grid. In the arrangement is in rows and columns, and each individual element is having some value, and we should be able to access that value, right? Now in Python, we can create a 2D array using list of lists, nested lists, right? Now here, rows and columns, they can have different lengths. Means row can be 2, column can be 3, right? Or they both can be same. A 3x3 structure we can create, a 4x4 structure we can create, or we can create a 3x4 structure. So rows and columns, they can be of different lengths or they can be of same length. That will provide flexibility for storing and manipulating tabular data in Python, right? So here is one example where I'm initializing a 2D array of 3x4, where rows are 3 and columns are 4 with zeros. I'm basically filling each data item with value 0, right? So here I have taken two variables, rows and cols, putting individual value for each. Now, if you look here, array is the name of the array. I have initialized it using this one statement. So this statement is basically a short form for nested loops in order to initialize each and every element of a 2D array with some value. So here I'm initializing it with 0. So 0 for C in range calls. So this is inner loop, right? This is inner loop. So where I have written this, and this is outer loop, which is written for rows. So inner loop is used for columns and outer loop is used for rows. So outer loop is written here and inner loop is written here. So for R in range rows, and inside I have written for C in range calls, I am filling each individual element with 0. Okay. Let's have a look at the example. So this is a 3 by 3 matrix, so two-dimensional matrix. You can initialize it this way also, right? You can write it this way also. So starting with this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there are 3 individual rows, first row, second row, and third row. You can write it this way also, and you can have irregular matrix also, where your columns are different in each and every row, right? So first row is having 1, 2, second row is having 3, 4, 5, and last row is having only 6. So you can have regular matrix, you can have irregular matrix created in Python, right? Now, let's go to Python shell to understand all these concepts. Now, let's say I have a list, my list. So I'm just creating an empty list. So to create an empty list, I can simply put my underscore list, that's the list name, equals empty square brackets. So now if I print this, my underscore list, so it will print an empty list. I can also write my underscore list is equals to, I can also initialize it with values. So let's say 1, 2, 3, I can also have some strings in it, CS with SKS. I can also have float values in it, let's say 5.6. And I can close the bracket and press enter. Now if I print my list, so the list is printed like this. All the elements are printed. Okay, so here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements. So if you need to understand indexing here, so my underscore list, so if I want to print, let's say 3, so indexing is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So to print 3, I need to write 2 here. So 3 is printed. Similarly, if I want to print last element, so I can write, how many elements are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So last item is 4, right? So index number 4 will give me 5.6. Okay, so that is how indexing works. Slicing. So to slice it, if I want elements from index number 2 to index number 4, so I'll print it this way. So it's giving me index number 2 and 3. Yeah, so last is whatever you mention here, stop value, that is not inclusive. Okay, so you need to write, if you want to print second and third, then you need to write fourth index value also there, because stop value is not inclusive. Okay, so that is how slicing is done. Now, how can we use loops to access list items? So let's say for I in my underscore list colon, if I write print I, so it has printed each and every individual element of list, right? So I has iterated through each and every individual element present in the list. Now, there is one more way. So if I write for I in, and range I'm taking using length function, my underscore list colon. Now, if I print I, it will give me indexing of index value of each and every element, right? So it has given me 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you want to, instead of printing the index value, if you want to print individual element, so what you can write is, you can write my list and then square brackets, and this statement will give you individual element present at that index position, right? So here, so this was the index position 0, so 0 index position is giving me 1 is giving me 2, then 3, then CS with SKS. So there are two ways. One, you simply iterate using membership operator and list name and print each individual element. Second is, you can use range function. Using length function, you can iterate through the list and you can print individual element by using the index value, right? So indexing method you can use here. So these are two ways. And similarly, you can use it using while loop as well. Now let's understand various built-in functions which are used with lists. First one we have already covered, which is length, len. So it returns the number of elements in the list. Now let's understand next function, which is append. Now let's create a program where we'll create a list by asking elements from the user, right? So create a list. First of all, let's initialize list, an empty one. Now I'm asking user for number of elements, right? So int input, how many elements? So I'm taking that number from user. Now using for loop, for I in range, as many elements user wants to enter, so that number is stored in number variable. Now I am asking from the user the element. So element value I'll take from the user. The user will enter the value. Now that element can be a number, it can be a string. So we need to see whether it's a number or a string. So accordingly we'll be changing. So let's check if that element is a digit. So if it is a digit, we'll need to convert it into integer, because by default, element enters is string using input statement, right? There is a function is digit to check whether particular number is a digit or not, right? So let's check whether the element which is entered by the user is digit or not. So element dot is digit. If it is, it will give me a true, else false. So if it is true, if it returns true, means the element is a digit, then I'll append it after converting into integer, right? So I'll use append function to append that element at the end of the list, right? List name is my underscore list dot append function I'll use to append that element at the end of the list. However, before appending, I'll convert it into integer. So element, right? Else, I'll append it without converting. In the end, we'll just print our list. Let's save and run this. It's asking how many elements. Let's say 4. Enter the element 1. Second element, let's say 55. Third element CS with SKS. And last 6. Now it has printed the list. First element 1, second 55, third CS with SKN, and last 68. Right? So that is how we use append function in lists. And that is how we create list by taking elements from the user. The next function is extend. Now here in the brackets, in the parentheses, we put an iterable. So what we do using extend function, so it appends elements from an iterable to the end of the list. So for example, you have list 1 is equals to 1, 2, and you have list 2 is equals to 5, 6. Now you want to extend list 1. So list 1 dot extend list 2, whatever elements of this. Enter. Now if you print list 1, so you got this, right? Earlier list 1 was having only 1 and 2, so it's extended, right? Now insert index item. Now you want to insert an item at the specified index of the list. So let's say I want to insert in list 1, I want to insert at index value 4, and my element is, let's say, 55. Now if I print my list 1, 55 is inserted at 4th index, right? I can insert anywhere. So instead of 4th, if I want to insert at 2nd position, I can do that as well. So 2. Now if I print list 1, so 55 is inserted at 2nd index value as well. If you want to remove an item, you can do that. Remove list 1 dot remove, and you write some item name 55, right? Now if I print list 1, so first occurrence of that element is removed. Okay, if there are multiple, so first occurrence will be removed. Now another element, function is pop. It will remove the element and return that item, whatever index number you are mentioning. So if I want to, let's say, remove element at position 3, index value 3, so it will return me that element. And if I print that list now, so that element is removed. So it returns the value and remove also from the list. So returns the element as well as that element is removed. So after printing, this list is displayed. Now another function is list dot index. So using this, whatever item you put here, it will, my function name is wrong. So list 1 dot index 55. So this index function, it will return the index of first occurrence of an item, whatever item you have mentioned here. So for 55, it is 0, 1, 2, and 3 index value. So index value is returned here, right? Now, you can also append the element. So list 1 dot append, we have already learned that. So I'm just adding element in the list 55 once again. So now why I have done that? Because we need to understand count function. So list 1 dot count, I want to count how many times 55 is present in my list. So count function, it returns number of times a particular element is present in the list. So if I print list 1, so it is present twice, 2 times. So that is why this function, count function, has returned 2 as an answer, right? Now you can sort a list in ascending order by writing, ours is already in ascending order. So let me add one more element here, append, let's say 3. So if I print my list, so right now my list is like this. So I can sort it in ascending order by writing list1 dot sort, enter. Now if I print list1, so my list is sorted. I can also sort it in reverse order, right? So if I write list1 dot reverse, so list1, now it is whatever elements were mentioned there, all those are in reverse order, right? Next is min function. So it will return the minimum value element present in the list. So list1 dot min, sorry, not this one. So min list1, so you use it this way. So it has returned the element whose value is minimum. Similarly, max function can be used and sum function can be used. So if you want to find sum of all the elements of a particular list, so you pass that list in sum function, and elements, all the elements, their sum will be returned, right? So these are some functions. We have few more functions. You can use them and you can understand them in your programs. Now it's assessment time. So I have only 3 questions for you guys today. So pause the video, try to solve these, and then compare your answers with the answer key that I'm going to display right now. So that's the answer key. Hope you got all the right answers. Thank you. I'll see you in the next video.